Okay, hello, good evening. Good evening, everyone. It has been a while since we have been live here at Connect Africa. So yeah, thank you for your attendance. And we have here today with me Dr. Hermon Ogba Mikael. We're gonna talk about, as the topic suggests, we can say I think the whole Eastern Africa is in war, or if not in emerging war, like Ethiopia has been in conflict, okay, for the past almost 2 years, and then now recently Sudan and Ethiopia, Tplf and Eritrea. Tplf is still based in Tigray, in northern parts of Ethiopia. And then we have, the DRC in Democratic Republic of Congo, which involves Uganda, Rwanda. So it has been really a crazy, last quarter of year for the Eastern Africa. Now, first of all, welcome, Dr. Hermon.
Thank you for inviting me, Mahlet. Thank you.
All right, then. So Dr. Hermon, he will introduce himself, and then, the topic also he's going to tell us today is actually from the Eritrea perspective. The TPLF has been the TPLF has been, launching rockets, trying to pull Eritrea into this war and, give it an international kind of look. So he will give us an update before I go in detail about that. Welcome. Tell us about yourself a little, and then, you can start, Dr. Hermon.
Okay, I'm Dr. Hermon Michael. I live here in Cape Town in South Africa. I teach at a university. At the same time, I'm head of the program, journalism program at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. So I'm an educator, basically, but I'm also part of Frontline Africa, part of one journal, Uhuru Spirit, as an editor. So that is all about me.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. So, Dr. Hermon, you're based in South Africa. Yeah, so, there is a talk about that the Ethiopian government and TPLF will talk or negotiate. Somehow the Ethiopian government has actually recently appointed some names who will be in this negotiation. But while this talk of negotiation has been there, TPLF, on the other hand, has been trying to provoke and pull others into this war. Tell us, because this kind of, swept under the rug and nobody's talking about how, the TPLF armies are regrouped in neighboring countries and also trying to pull Eritrea. The international media don't seem to cover it and we don't get so much update. Tell us about it.
Well, in general, the people in the region, whether it is the Ethiopian or Eritrean people, also the Somalian people, okay, who have the common interest, an interest of peace in the region. I mean, we all want to see peace, so when we see peace negotiation, we should be happier. But, that could be only a theory from my opinion, if there is no a heartfelt need for peace from the TPLF's side. Because the last 20 years, what we have witnessed is, TPLF to a large extent has been the source of destabilization in the region. And we can track the records. For example, when the war started in 1998, in the name of border conflict against Eritrea, actually it was the Ethiopian parliament, the TPLF-led parliament at the time, that was dominated by TPLF, who actually declared war There was no declaration of war from the Eritrean side. That is the reality. But let's leave that aside. Now, there was, in 2002, there was the Algiers Agreement, and the Prime Minister, late Prime Minister uh, Meles Zenawi and President Isaias Afwerki, they have signed that the Algiers Agreement would be final and binding. Then we all know that then the also the late Foreign Minister Siyum Masfun went back to Addis Ababa and he said that Badma was awarded to us and so on. There was jubilation and celebration. So they have lied to people. So that shows you that there is some sort of being a pathological liar, diplomatically trying to confuse the international community and also the Ethiopian people in the past. Also, mainly as we see now, the Tigrayan people confusing them, trying to deliberately making them ignorant about the situation, only to tell them the next day or within that week that no, it was not awarded to us, so we don't accept the Algiers agreement and so on. So the whole thing is, it doesn't look even about Badme. It seems that the TPLF has a dual agenda, which also confuses you. So these twin objectives are, first, they want to seize power again, to be a dominant political and also even economic power in Ethiopia. Again, they also, on the other side, they want to pursue their very violent or hostile agenda of territorial expansion against Eritrea, especially in the highlands. They always talk about this Tigrinya speaking people are brothers and so on. Okay, it's fine. We might have some common interests in language and some cultural aspects. But, also in South Africa, there is a Botswana, that side, Botswana, there is a Tswana in South Africa. There is what you call Sutu in Lesotho and Sutu in South Africa. But they all actually respect their sovereignty or territorial integrity. So from my understanding, I don't know if this peace negotiation that the TPLF is ready to go to Kenya, I think it's in Kenya, if there is a genuine interest in peace. Because if there was a genuine in peace, the federal force and also the federal force in general, the Ethiopian government, they did the unilateral, what do you call, declaration of peace, which means there was a ceasefire, unilateral ceasefire announcement made, and after that, then you have seen the TPLF going to as far as what do you call, deep into the Amhara region, Olo or Debre Tabor or whatever, all those, and going into Afar and trying to also have some more wars, the Eritrean border, the Eritrean side. So, I mean, it's very confusing. But the very unfortunate situation here is, and which is, it remains that it's compounded by the position of the US and its allies. I mean, the US seems to have the, what do you call, the appetite to salvage the TPLF cliques, because they use them as a puppet regime to destabilize. As far as Somalia, the TPLF has a very good relations with Al-Shabaab. They were arming Al-Shabaab, but they were playing the other side of the coin, saying that Eritrea was arming Al-Shabaab, because Eritrea government doesn't take any orders of the US and its allies, of the Western governments. It has its own political independence, especially in terms of its foreign policy. Okay? So we'll have this kind of regional destabilization until the TPLF is there. TPLF is a real threat to regional peace and security in the region. I don't know what will happen, but from history, from the last even 20 years, we can only see that there is a belligerence from the TPLF side. I mean, who attacked actually the Northern Command on the 3rd of November 2020? It was a premeditated attack. It's a sudden attack. It's compared to the Nazi style blitzkrieg, what they call this Second World War type of attack on a command that they used to belong, on their own military, because they wanted to. They had the 80% of the artillery, 80% of the force. So that it was a miscalculation that they made, and we are all now in a situation that we find ourselves. Back to you, Mahlet. Hi,
Sorry,
Mahlet.
I was talking there while I was muted.
Yeah.
No, I said thank you. You gave us a bit of a historical background, how it started, and then the war that we had, unfortunately, 2 decades ago. And let's talk about if you can, regarding this peace negotiation. Does it involve Eritrea? And how is it taken by Eritrea?
Yeah, but the TPLF manifesto from the very beginning, first, as the name suggests, is Tigray People's Liberation Front. So they seem to have fought for, as secessionists, from what I understand. But be that be, this what we call this dream of Grand Tigray, taking some land from the Amhara sides, taking some parts of land from Eritrea, especially in the western lowlands and highlands of Eritrea and up to the Red Sea, and taking some from Sudan. And Sudan is not about this, but they don't have the gut to talk about it. Which means when there is this peace negotiation, on what basis? What are their demands? Because TPLF's objectives are very confusing at times. Yeah, you don't know what they want. Because do they want to be a dominant power in Ethiopia, or do they want to be part of the power sharing deal in Ethiopia for a continued peace and respect to all ethnic groups? Or they want to expand, because they talk openly now, some of the Tigray intellectuals, like there is one professor in US, what is his name? I forgot his name. He talks about openly that we have to expand up to the Red Sea and so on. So that is the manifestation of what the TPLF objectives are. That's why this war doesn't continue. That's why they never accepted the Algiers agreement. Now we can clearly understand that they are up to something here. So why do they go, for example, to the Amhara region? When you are actually telling the international community that we've been invaded, but you are invading yourself, other regions. So on what basis, on what basis will the negotiation of peace will be? Of course, if Eritrea is not part of the negotiation, and also people in the Amhara region, whom TPLF is claiming about Walqait and Tagada and so on, if they are not part of this peace negotiation, which I understand they are clearly, but they are part of this conflict. Yeah. Even Afar people are also now affected for no reason. Okay. Actually, it's not even about Afar. It's about going as far as beyond that. Okay. I mean, trying to block Djibouti, and because there's a supply line that side and more. So what I'm saying is, of course, all parties need to be there. But now the worst is there is also some strategic interests from the US and its allies. Uh, what will be also their agenda there, you know? Because unfortunately, you know, I mean, if you when you the Secretary of State issued a statement right after the sudden attack in November 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Pompeo clearly said that, I mean, this shouldn't be internationalized because the moment they sent rockets to Eritrea, because the TPLF, you can tell that they had an agenda of, you know,
Intervene.
expanding
Yeah.
territory this side and so on. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done that. There was no use, you know, I mean, the border was open, closed at some time in points because of some security threats. Then again, targeting, I mean, as per the Eritrean government, over 100, uh, what do you call, targets, send rockets, so very unnecessary, you know. But that clearly shows that there is this war mongering mentality because they
Yes.
have that very hidden agenda that they wanted to realize. Until they do that, this what we call peace negotiation. I don't know where it will take us, but I don't see. I'm not pessimistic, but I'm very pragmatic and realistic. I don't see
Mm-hmm.
actually unless they clearly have a real good objective about peace.
Is there any statement released by the Eritrean government?
Well, I haven't seen any statement
Okay.
recently. Usually, you know, there is a quiet policy from the Eritrean side because, I mean, statement after statement all the time wouldn't actually bear any fruits. There were so many statements. And I think the Eritrean stance is very clear from the very beginning. Since 2002, they have been, I mean, the government has been saying the Algiers agreement is final and binding. That was actually the issue that brought the war in 1990. So if that was the case, then that chapter needs to be closed. And also in terms of Eritrean government's policy, very clearly from what I see, uh, is there shouldn't be ethnic institutionalization in Ethiopia because if Ethiopia is divided along the lines of ethnicity, if there is violence in Ethiopia, then Eritrea will be affected, of course. Okay? Because if there is no peace in my neighbor here, I wouldn't have peace myself. Okay?
Mm.
And vice versa. The same also in Somalia, you know, the same also in Sudan, the same also in whether it's in Djibouti or Yemen. I'm not saying that a country has to trespass the territory of others. Each country has its own political independence, its own policy, but yet this war that we have with TPLF is very regional now. It's taking regional dimension. It's involving Sudan to some extent. It's involving superpowers as usual, you know. So obviously that is situation.
Yeah, no, so I was saying I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
Yes,
said
Mahlet,
also,
can you
yeah,
make it a bit
I was
loud? Yeah.
uh, I was saying I didn't mean to interrupt you, but now that with the new elect president of Somalia, also they seem to, uh,
Hi,
you
Mahlet,
know,
can you make it a bit loud? I can't hear you. Yeah.
you cannot hear me. I think there's something wrong with you with your device because I am unmuted. It should be okay. Do you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I couldn't hear properly.
Maybe it has to do with the connection with you.
Maybe. Let me check. From my side, it looks that it is fine.
Okay, you hear me now?
Yeah, but very.
I don't know really. I really hope it will hold us. Um, yeah, it's just you have also touched about the U.S. strategic interest in the region. What do you think they want to see in the region? When do like what is their interest, and when do they stop interfering in the region and arming one, disarming the other? I mean, when do they stop, and what is their interest?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, from my perspective, they wouldn't stop here. They wouldn't stop in the Horn of Africa. They wouldn't stop in Africa. Actually, the American government, American military has a base in some of the African countries. And I think it's except Eritrea in Africa, all of them have in principle accepted for the presence of the military base here. And, it's not only the US also, but China and India, Turkey, and so on. They are showing their interest also in the region, in the Horn of Africa, and in the whole of Africa in general. There are competing factors, so they will not stop. Yeah. So if we Africans in general are not united, if there is no, a committed leadership in Africa that protects the interests of its own people, the interests of its own region, and in general the continent, then it will not stop. Yeah. So that is when it stops. It stops when we are united. That's why we are Pan-Africanists, some of us, because we believe that, we cannot, as one country, like a small country in Africa, may not be able to challenge, these superpowers. So the only way to challenge them is we have the African Union as a continental body. But even after Muammar Gaddafi was killed, they are not
Yeah.
even talking about African unity and Pan-Africanism. They talk about small things, about what they call, they talk about this COVID or Ebola or small other things that can be dealt with, in a different way or in an easier way. So I think the Pan-Africanism, first, even regional integration, what Ethiopia, Somalia, and Eritrea were doing, we were going in the right direction, especially with President Farmajo, not the current one. The current one usually has been a puppet for the U.S. government. The puppet that we have now in Somalia is the same person, who's been actually allowing the U.S. and its allies to put sanctions in some countries like Eritrea and so on. And he has actually, in the same day, he has invited the American military presence. So what I'm saying is we were going in the right direction, because it was a very good tripartite regional integration. So, if we could be militarily, if we have a joint venture in all aspects, militarily, economic-wise, in terms of diplomacy, then we could have been stronger. But that, usually the superpowers, they have their own interests. I don't blame them. They have their own interests. Then we must keep our own interests as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That is at the bottom line.
We should defend our own interest. Our leaders supposed to defend our. I mean, okay. Welcome. I want to address Kwame Gonza, who is a friend here, and yeah, he joined us late, but he's here to deliver. Welcome, my brother. We will continue. I mean, just to give it to conclude what you said, it was on the right direction, definitely. What Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somalia started, but that seemed kind of hijacked, at least for me. But always there's a disappointment by our leaders. So what can we do as people? Now that we have come together, people from Eritrea, from Somalia, we have been so much in support of that initiative. What can we do as ordinary citizens, or as an activist, or as a media people? What should we do to carry on with that idea? At least what we can do on our level to keep it to keep it going, regardless of the at times changing agenda of by our leaders. Yeah, so with that I leave you, and then when I come back to you, I really want to hear your thought, Dr. Herman, on that. So Kwame is here with us. We are talking about, again, to remind our audience or our viewers, there is an ongoing war and a new war emerging in the region, namely in Eastern Africa and also in the Horn of Africa, mainly by TPLF. Kwame, we look at it. Tell us what is the U.S. involvement or the Western involvement here in this region. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mahlet. And I want to thank the viewers of Connect Africa, and thanks to my brother Hyman, who's been making a very important remarks, very strong remarks on the direction of the continent. I'd like to remind those who are watching, who are new and those who are old, to share the channel, Connect Africa, because this is a very important tool when it comes to putting out our narrative out there as Africans. So it's important that if you are not subscribed, you subscribe, but also if you are subscribed, you invite other people, because this is where we come to dialogue and discuss issues, many issues affecting our continent. I have not seen any network, in fact, across all the continent, where people come to discuss the continent. And I want to thank you, Mahlet, because you've done this really well, that you've tried to bring people from different parts of the continent. You bring people from the south of the continent. You have tried to bring people, from the Caribbean, who are African, people of African descent. You try to bring people from, West Africa. Try to bring people from East Africa. So I think this is a really important thing you are doing. Most of the YouTube channels, they are merely focused on making a dollar, making money. So they will put out even things which are really not relevant. So I think that you really deserve credit for doing this, for building this platform to be a space where we come and talk about the future of our continent, where people come and put out ideas and update even the audience about what is going on in the different parts of our continent. So on that note, I would like to appreciate you, and the people who are watching, they really need to support Connect Africa, this channel, so that we can build our continent together, because the understanding is that this continent, there's no one who's going to build it, unless we do it. So when we come to that understanding that the responsibility is upon us, then I think we will be in the right place. Many times, in many cases, people have been thinking or have thought that the task of building this continent is upon the African leaders, majority of whom definitely who are very old, apart from a few, we can talk of Prime Minister Abiy, who are young, but majority of them are old. And many have thought that these people are the ones who are supposed to build the continent, but they have not built the continent. If when we look at the last 60 years since independence. So if they have not been able to transform this continent called Africa, and the African people are still being killed in places like Spain at the border with, with Morocco and Spain. European Union is paying for these policies whereby we have seen recently over 40 Africans were shot, were beaten and killed at the border of Spain. European Union is the one paying for this. These are European policies. So for us to sit here and think that the African leaders will be able to do this work when they have failed for the last 60 years since independence, I think it will be unfortunate. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that the responsibility of building this continent is upon us. I would like to say what I normally refer to as the right edge, because I believe, and a lot of other people who are analysts, historical analysts, analysts of history and political economy, they have been saying that we are at a revolutionary moment, in history, all history, we are, entering a new world order, okay? Because the old order is falling apart. So with that, I have been saying that the group that is supposed to transform this continent, if you are 25 years up to around 45 years, even up to 50, and you are living in this moment today, and you have consumed the right intellectual, food, okay? This intellectual food, I mean, if you have consumed enough literature, Pan-African literature, or literature which concerns the African continent, and have digested that literature, and you have enough conviction that our continent is not in the right place, then you are the right person who is going to contribute immensely to the transformation of our continent in the next 10 to 15 years. So that is, the truth about it. If you go back even in history and you examine what has been going on. Mahlet, I'm coming to the subject of today, but I wanted to put this on the side for us to be able to understand that we have the responsibility of building this continent, the burden, like how our forefathers in the year around 200 years ago, in the year 1791, when they were shipping slaves from the African continent, our forefathers took it upon themselves in Haiti, because these were purely Africans who were taken from the continent, taken, during those days it was called San Domingo, but they took it upon themselves and started fighting against France. They fought against Britain, they fought against Spain, and they defeated all these countries, okay? And they did not have, they were mere workers, or that time what they called slaves. And they didn't have economies, they didn't have communication systems, they didn't have any weapons, but they believed that the Africans have to be free. Slavery has to be stopped. And they took whatever they had, they used every weapon they had, stones, sticks. These are the weapons which they started with, machetes, these pangas, which they were using in the farm, and because they were farming sugar and cotton for Britain and France, and these countries were growing big. Okay, so they were violating rights all around the world, but our people took it upon themselves and they fought and defeated France. And imagine, France was a superpower during that period. Britain was a superpower during that period, but they fought against these superpowers, like how you see today, the United States, there is the superpower, but hidden behind this superpowerdom is tremendous weakness. So our people, they did not have businesses, they did not have economies, they did not have the communication system, they did not have weapons, but they had the will. Okay, they had the will to be free. They had the conviction, they had the intention. They turned this conviction into an intention, and they fought and they became free, and Haiti became free in 1804. So this is the type of conviction which we are supposed to have also as a people, because our ancestors saw it that it is this burden which they have to liberate the African people from slavery. They saw that it is their time to do it, and they did it amidst all hopelessness, but they were hopeful, okay? And they were able to fight against Britain, fight against these superpowers, fight against France, first fight against Spain. And they were able even to resist the United States for a very long time. Okay, so this is why we see that Haiti is always, Haiti is always exploited. Haiti is always, looked at as backward, because these white people, they have never forgiven Haiti for that. Now, let's just come to 1945 also. 1945, our ancestors also sat down and they said, it is upon us to fight against this colonialism on our continent. Okay, what did they have? They didn't have much. They didn't have what we have today. They didn't have the resources of, what we have today. So, but they understood that it is, the burden is upon us. The responsibility is upon us. Okay, so this responsibility which is upon us has to be turned into an intention, and a conviction. It has to be turned into an intention and a conviction. So this, they were convinced that the Africans have to be free. And lo and behold, while we had these superpowers, Britain, all over Germany, all over, they have taken over the continent because they were the governments of the day. But they decided to sit in Manchester. All the Africans from the Caribbean, from the United States, from the continent, they sat in Manchester in a meeting which was ignored. The meeting was ignored and they thought that it is just nothing. These boys and girls, and they were young people, 27 years, 21, 30 years. They were just young people. And they sat. Remember, during that time, all the colonial powers had taken control over the continent. They were the political masters during that period. They had the weapons, but these people sat down with conviction. They didn't have weapons, they didn't have armies, they didn't have businesses, they didn't have a lot of money. But they sat down in Manchester and declared that we have to, we have to make the black people free. The black people have to be free. The African continent has to be free. And they achieved it. Nkrumah came back to the Gold Coast in 1947. And within a period of 12 years, within a period of 10 years, 10 to 12 years, the Gold Coast achieved independence. How did he do it? How did our ancestors do it in Haiti? So we are not going to cry and say, imperialism is disturbing us, is killing us, we have to turn this desire to be free, this desire to live in dignity, this desire to live as free people, this desire to have control over our destiny as Africans, this desire to be masters of our destiny as Africans. We have to turn this into an intention to be free. And we will do it, we Africans. Because let me tell you, we have more resources. We have more resources compared to all our ancestors who stopped slavery and those who achieved independence for us as Africans. We have more resources compared to them. Look at the communication systems. We can sit here and communicate with 1,000 people. They didn't have that. We have many people, Africans, in the middle class right now. Our continent has a big middle class. So that means we have businesses, we have a lot of money compared to what they had. So the governments which are existent today on our continent, which are neo-colonial, majority of them, and they don't believe in Pan-Africans, they don't believe in a true, free Africa, truly free Africa, which is fully developed. It means we have to sit down as a people, as young people. Like I said, if you are 25 years up to 50 years, then we need to agree that we need to sit down and dialogue on how we are going to do it, how we are going to liberate the continent. Just like how our ancestors sat, like I said, in 1945 in Manchester, during a Manchester conference, the Pan-African Conference, Manchester. I think it is the 50th Pan-African Congress, which sat in Manchester. That conference, they sat down and the purpose of that conference was to dialogue and find out what can we do, what is supposed to be done. Instead of sitting down and complaining, they said, what can we do? All Africans, it is not only Africans on the continent who sat down. Because remember that conference, there was people like George Padmore, who was from the Caribbean. There was people like W.E.B. Du Bois. There were people like Amy Ashwood Garvey, who was a wife to the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Kwame Nkrumah was there. Jomo Kenyatta was, all Africans. So this is what it means to be Pan-African. And this, when we are talking about that Pan-Africanism has delivered, has always delivered for the African people. This is what we mean. Because if it was not for Pan-Africanism, independence in its sense, the political independence, however much compromised it is to the independence in its sense, that the African countries now, they sit at the United Nations General Assembly and they are recognized as nations and they have flags there. That independence which achieved that, it was achieved, it was brought to us by our ancestors. It was brought to us by these people, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Jomo Kenyatta, the Sekou Toure, the Stokely Carmichael, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, okay, George Padimo, Amy Ashwood Gave. These people, the Winnie Mandelas, these people sat down and they did not care about whether they live or die. They did not, the Haile Selassies, okay, these people, they sat down and they did not care about how much money they have in the pocket. They did not care about whether they live or die. These people did not care about how much money they have in their bank account. Okay, so that is the spirit which we have to capture as a people. Now we have armed with our intention that Africa has to be free, that the African people have suffered enough. The suffering is enough. It is enough. 40 people being killed, because they were going to Europe, being killed by Spain, being killed by these Europeans who are financing these policies that are helping to kill our people, is enough. The people that are being killed in the streets of the United States by the corrupt, police system, the corrupted judicial system in the United States, is enough. It is enough. So we have to sit down as Africans. The interference of the United States in all African affairs, in all political affairs, economic affairs of the African continent, it is enough. These things, we are supposed to approach them as Africans. So we have to sit down and say it is enough. And what is our challenge? Our challenge is the neocolonial governments which are on the continent. And then let us sit down and dialogue as a people and say, what can we do now? What are the options? Once we understand that we are supposed to be free, we are armed with our intention, then we say, what can we do? What are the options? What are the options? Let us put the options out on the table. All of them, because we are saying that enough is enough. The exploitation of this continent is enough. The exploitation of the people and the continent is enough. Okay, so we have to understand that we have to be free, and that intention should be transformed into a dialogue, what I'm calling a conference, like what happened in Manchester in 1945, Pan-African Congress, the Pan-African Congress that happened in Manchester in 1945. Let this intention be transformed into a dialogue, and let us have a dialogue, and let us put the options out on the table, and then let us start testing those options which we have. And Africa will be free, I'm telling you. By all means, Africa, I believe, will be free. And especially if we do those things consistently. What we have chosen to do, we have to do it consistently. Consistently, like I pointed out to you, Nkrumah came back to the Gold Coast in 1947. What is today Ghana? And he struggled against imperialism in Ghana, in West Africa, for 10 consistent years. Because he came back in 1947 and Gold Coast achieved its independence to become Ghana in 1957. That's a period of 10 years. It doesn't take 1 week. It doesn't take 2. We have to be organized. Organized in a sense that we are effective. Our voice is effective. Our actions are effective. And like I said, we have a lot of resources. There's no reasons why, there's no single reason why we can't be free. So the courage is needed, but there's no reason why we can't be free, because we are in a much, much, much better position compared to our ancestors. But they achieved these things for us. So we don't have an excuse. We do not have an excuse. We are more educated. We are more knowledgeable. We have more money. We have better communication systems. Okay, so we do not have an excuse for keeping the African continent in bondage. We do not have an excuse for leaving the African continent, especially if you are Pan-African. If you love Africa, let me not even say a Pan-African, because many times we have said Pan-African and many people have separated themselves because a Pan-Africanist sounds a certain way. But let me rephrase it. If you are someone who cares about the African continent, anyone who cares about the well-being, the welfare of the African people all around the world, whether they are living in the United States, those black people you see there, they are called Africans. They have, there has been an attempt to give them different names, Black Americans, African Americans and all that. They are not that. These are Africans. These are Africans in the United States. So we have to take that responsibility, and then we have to move forward, armed with our intention and liberate our people, because enough is enough for the African people. So Mahlet, you will come back, and then I'll you will come back and maybe make your comments, and I'll come back later to make my submission on the analysis on what is happening with the United States and its exploitation and its military bases on the continent, especially in East Africa. But we will look at the whole continent. I had to put this out. I'm not saying this because we are not doing anything. We are already engaged in this struggle. We have actually petitions which we have put out there. And Mahlet, you give me a chance to talk about those petitions which have been endorsed by Pan-African Daily TV and Dr. Susan, and also the PLO Lumumba Foundation has endorsed these petitions. Honorable Joshua Maponga also has agreed to endorse these petitions, and these petitions are for unifying the continent. Like I said, the power is within the African people, the civil society, the African citizens all across the globe. Thank you very much, Mahlet.
Thank you very much, Kwame. Really, that was important. Indeed, it's a Pan-African platform. We don't have to stick really to the question. I mean, if it's all related, you reminded us how it is important, to keep on fighting and to never give up. And hope is there, and we will be free. Definitely, we have to believe that we are free. We just have to do some works. And there's one comment that says, regarding the age limit that you put, no matter, regardless of your age, you have to work for the Africa we want. It exactly says, if Africa is in you, then you are responsible for the Africa we want, no matter your age. That's what it says. Maybe.
Yeah. So there's a proverb which says that you can't win a war unless you have the youth and the elders. Now, these two people complement each other. The youth provide the energy, and the elders, they provide the wisdom. So you can't win a war unless you have the youth energy, the energy of the youth, and the wisdom of the
Kwame,
elders. With me talking about the age limit, that one I was just talking about the group that is supposed to be on the front line. That is the group I was talking about, because our elders are supposed to be in the background. We need the youth to come on the front. They have to be on the front, because the people who are in the bush or who are in any war, they don't send the elders. The elders are always in the background trying to advise the young people what to do. Go here, don't go there. Don't move in this way, because the youth have the energy. So it was not an attempt to sideline the elders.
Okay. Thank you, Kwame, for clarifying that. Good. I will come back to you, Dr. Herman. So I hear an echo. And just. Yeah. So, Dr. Herman, on the question that I left you with, regarding, to keep that alliance in the Horn of Africa, working people to people, how we can carry on, like Ethiopia and Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, or all of us together. I mean, even it could be to Ethiopia to Kenya, but I mean, these three countries have their own history. So we had war at times. So to keep that initiative that was really so much welcome and embraced by so many, Somalis or Eritreans or Ethiopians. Now, I mean, the leaders can always, there is this interference from the West and can disappoint us. They might not work up to our own expectations. So, but we as people, how can we carry on? What should we do to create that rapprochement, whether it's economically, culturally, politically? What should we do for the betterment of the three countries?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we need to have a platform, a platform of Pan-Africanism, as we have, all of us. I mean, to start, engaging, with various public in Africa. We need also even to involve some of even people from the other continents who actually fully understand what is happening about Africa and the whole interference from their governments. There are some truthful people, principled people in any society. But at the same time, we will have a very, very massive work in terms of, educating the youth, because especially many of our young people now, the young generation, I don't know what you call them, the Z generation, or what they give them some names. They are so much into social media, and many of these things in the social media are entertainment. Things actually. I'm not saying that you shouldn't actually be actually watching entertainment videos, this and that, but it became too excessive. I don't even know if the young generation now are even reading books that add value to actually their life, something very crucial or important in their life. So my point is, so we really need actually to educate the young people, to mobilize them to know about their continent. It's about their future. Am I right? I mean, my brother Kwame was talking about many Black Americans being killed in US, being Black, just being tortured by some white police, by some racist police, and so on. So it has, I mean, and it seems that nobody seems to defend these people. People are just living their own life. I'm not saying that there are no people who defend these people. There are also laws there. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, we really need to actually have a series of seminars, a series of symposiums, because people who are not aware, people who are ignorant, then, I mean, you can't blame them, then that's what you call plural ignorance. Then the society will usually be just ignorant of what is happening, in the continent, what is happening in our country. So we need series of seminars, a series of symposiums, conferences, and so on and so forth. We need to write and be involved in the media in actually orientating people, our society, also our governments. Our governments also must initiate, collaborative regional, what do you call, seminars and conferences, and they should involve the youth. Comrade Kwame was very right, because if you don't involve the youth, who's future are you creating actually? We only see corruption. I mean, we only see bribery everywhere, even here in South Africa. The president implicated with corruption. You go to Angola, the president, his daughter, she being involved in corruption. You go to Congo, the same. I think yesterday marked about, I think, the 60th of Independence Day in Congo. What does Congo have, to be honest? Do Congolese people deserve, you know? So what they have today. So what I'm saying is because they don't involve the youth. You know, our leaders are actually lacking in that, you know, and you will find somebody who is very old, then he is leader of the youth. He doesn't even know what they need, you know. So what I'm saying is, I mean, there should be a very proper, it's a delicate matter, you know, for future generations, a proper transition of experience, transition of power as well to the youth. I'm not saying that the older people are not important. It's all about commitment. It's not even about age. But what I'm saying is the involvement of the youth in mobilizing them, you know, not to live the way we are living today in Africa, not to continue living our life, not to continue suffering like the way our forefathers, our fathers, and us suffered. So we need to educate people, but we need also to educate people to, you know, what do you call, not to be tribalist, not to be ethnicist, not to be xenophobic. These are the social maladies that are actually destroying Africa. It's not even about having resources. You can build so many high edifice, or what do you call, tall buildings, good industrial parks, and so on. But if you don't build the mind of the youth, tomorrow they will destroy what has been built because they don't mean to coexist together. So these are the advices that I can give for today. Back to you, Mahlet.
Thank you, Dr. Hermon. Yeah, so the message is that we really have to involve the youth or the young people, and also not only from the region, those three countries, but also others. And also there has to be some kind of initiative from the government side, and to continue educating and creating awareness, because there is, you know, as much as the information is out there, there seem to be still, you know, our young generation is longing to leave the country or the continent and go to the West. Anything outside of Africa is good. I mean, that's at least what most of African people think. So thank you for that, Dr. Hermon.
Can I just add one thing? Yeah.
Yes,
you know,
please.
For example, there is where I'm working here at this Cape Peninsula University of Technology. Now they have been talking about for the last few years, which we all are involved somehow, about Africanization or indigenization of knowledge.
Okay.
Or we have other agendas, internationalization beyond that. Especially that part, that Africanization and indigenization of knowledge is very important. I was teaching history, I remember back part of my national service, about 1995, it was 8th grade history. We were teaching children about Cromwell or whoever in England, the royal family in England, whatever, you know. I mean, why do we have to teach our children European history?
Exactly.
First, they must know their own history. A person who does not know himself, why should I know about somebody else before I know about myself? So that is where the self-hatred also comes about. we African people, you know, because you're talking about greenest pastures in Europe. It doesn't mean that there are no opportunities in Africa, but our youth do not have access to those opportunities because of nepotism, because of corruption. That is the truth. We must also sometimes self-criticize here, because we can't even always blame Europeans, because they take advantage of our weaknesses all the time. They know what, I mean, we are capable, we have the capability, but our lack of capability is we are suffering with tribalism, ethnicism, xenophobia, corruption, bribery, all these bad things are around us. The lack of involvement of the youth, lack of the right education, civic education.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
agree.
And we have even intellectuals at professor level, still they don't understand what Africanization means, you know, what to be an African. They live their own life, you know. So it needs commitment. Not everybody can be a hero, you know, but this continent needs very quality, few people who can change this continent. I mean, he was mentioning about Nkrumah, Sekotore in US. We had also so many people who, very few people who changed this world. But because the mass needs only to be mobilized by this very few quality and people who are bold to talk, like what we have here, what do you call this, EFF leader that we have, Malema. He talks his mind.
Yeah.
Okay? But what makes me sad is some South African people, while he's fighting for them, African people like him, they keep on criticizing him. Somebody was telling me today, oh, he's going too far. I told him, that is what we need, somebody that goes too far.
Exactly.
Yes, because, you know, if you are a coward yourself, you must be at home. But you cannot actually prevent others from being heroes, you know. So that is very important.
Very, very, yeah, really a good closing. I shouldn't say more. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Hermon, really for that. So back to you, Kwame. So Dr. Hermon was earlier saying, you know, yes, the U.S. has full its hand in this region, you know, destabilizing the states in Horn of Africa or in the Greater Horn. But also, one important thing that he said is, you know, it's also the interest of our leaders. If they were really there to defend the interest of their people, then this wouldn't have had happened. Yeah, you can throw some enlightenment about this U.S. involvement in the region, its interest, and then aren't our leaders also responsible? You can also put some way forward as people. What should are we going to pass? You know, to the same country that's neo-colonized to the next generation? How do we prevent from this happening? You know. Can we abort it? Sorry, you were
Thank you. Thank you, Mahlet. In 1965, Nkrumah published a book called Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. Now, Nkrumah's argument in this book, I would encourage people to go out there and Google this book and you know, and get it. Or anyone who thinks they want to have it and they don't find it on the internet, let them put it in the comment write it down in the comments, and I'll personally go through the comment section and I'll send you the book. You can leave your number and I'll send it to you. Just write it down in the comment on this video, and I'll give you the book. Now, Nkrumah published that book called Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, in 1965. When he published that book, Mahlet, can you please leave it so that they are three? I played with you. Thank you. So when he published this book, the United States came out immediately to ban the book, to stop the publication of the book, and they banned the publisher. They told him he should not print the book again. That is the United States. Now, they went ahead to send a letter of protest from the office, from the United States Department of State, Department of State of the United States, which is like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the United States. So they went ahead to send a letter of protest to the office of the president of Ghana, who's Kwame Nkrumah. They said that they don't like how he's writing and talking about them, and this book, he should remove it from, from print. They should ban the book. And so they stopped the publisher. They told him, don't print this book again. They sent a letter of protest to Nkrumah. They were supposed to give Ghana, during that time, I think it was around $20 million in some form of aid or grant. They seized that money and they said they should not, they will not give that money to Ghana because of Nkrumah's book. Now they went ahead and they said that Nkrumah has to go. He has to go from power. And he was overthrown in 1966. Remember, he published the book in 1965, and they overthrew him in 1966 and removed him from power. Now, what is in this book that these people make these people, act this way? So this book, I believe that it is one book which people have really not even understood up to today. But Nkrumah details for you everything that was going to happen to Africa, the future of Africa, if we do not act in a certain way, if we do not respond in a certain way, if the leaders do not respond in a certain way, if they keep neglecting their responsibilities, because in Africa Must Unite, some of the things which Nkrumah spoke about was that get the independence. When you get the independence, consolidate that independence. Okay, so consolidate that independence through unity, African unity. Why do you consolidate the independence? The purpose of the consolidation of this independence was to stop the foreign interference. I want people to hang in there with me because I don't want people to get lost. I'm still coming to the issue of the United States, but I need to build this case very well for us to be able to understand. First of all, I showed you that Nkrumah published a book. And when he published a book, the United States protested against this book. And that Nkrumah. Okay, so Britain.
We lost you for a few seconds, so maybe.
Yes. Yeah, so Britain would connive with the United States to overthrow Nkrumah. Okay, United States, they moved together, the imperialist powers, as you have seen, they even formed an organization, which is called the NATO. This NATO is nothing but a colonial organization to continue the process of colonization, like what happened in the 17th century, 16th and 17th century, the exploitation, because the purpose of Europeans coming here was the exploitation of African resources. And so Nkrumah would say that imperialism does not change its substance. It is only, actually in that book, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, he said, it is only the form of imperialism that has changed, but the substance is still the same. What does Nkrumah mean? because in the 60s he was warning people that imperialism is changing hands. You know, he was telling them that let us be careful. He was warning the leaders during that period. Let us be careful, because what we are seeing as independence, imperialism will come from another channel. It may come from another angle, not necessarily from Europe. So he was making these statements. But he had already seen the United States as the new imperialist power, because the United States had emerged from 1945 as the superior power, because Europe had come from World War II. And World War II, the United States emerged as the superpower at that time. It had become very powerful. And then it started making new institutions, World Bank, you know, all those organizations here. The UN was formed, you know, in the 1940s in New York. They were the leader of all these organizations. And when they emerged from World War II as the superpower, very rich, Nkrumah immediately saw it as the threat to Africa's independence. So that is why he said that get the independence, consolidate that independence through African unity. African unity was supposed to consolidate that independence for us, so that we are totally free. That is what Nkrumah meant by consolidating, so that we stop the interference of imperialism from outside in our affairs. When we are conducting our affairs, what we are seeing, the United States is interfering in Ethiopia, is interfering in the Congo, is interfering in Djibouti, is interfering in Somalia, is interfering, bombing in Libya, you know, going in Ghana, establishing military, is all over the continent, running all over, going all over. Mali, where, you know. So all this is what Nkrumah said and meant by consolidating the independence. And then when you finish consolidating the independence, start the reconstruction process. Start reconstruction of Africa. Now, what he meant by reconstruction is what we are seeing that happened in China. In a period of less than 30 years, China has risen from an agrarian society to an industrial superpower in every sense. In every sense. Okay? So that is what reconstruction is. That is what Nkrumah meant by reconstruction. And in one of the speeches, Nkrumah said that what the developed countries have achieved in a full generation, we must try to achieve in less than half of a generation. And he put out he built a lot of industries in Ghana. He built a lot of things, roads, you know, beautiful cities. He built a full city, you know, called Tema in Ghana, built ports, this Black Star Line, he established shipping lines. So all these things were meant for the service of the African continent. But the imperialists saw him as a threat because of this message that he was, you know, spreading. So they saw him a threat. He built numerous industries. Even the only oil refinery which they have in Ghana, Nkrumah built it in 1960. 1960. He did not even know that time that Ghana has oil. Ghana started, you know, mining oil, drilling oil, and commercially, Ghana became an oil exporting country in 2000, I think around 2006. If I'm not mistaken. I may need a little correction that way. But Nkrumah built an oil refinery in 1960. Now, you think about the mind of such a person. How did he know that Ghana will find oil? Nkrumah started talking about solar energy. Nkrumah, before the commercialization of solar energy in 1964. So I want people to pay close attention to what Nkrumah was saying. Everything which Nkrumah wrote down is consequential, is important to what is happening today, because he warned us about the United States. 1960s, Nkrumah warned about the United States, how dangerous the United States is. Nkrumah warned in 1960. It is written clearly in his books, and especially that book, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. Everything which they are doing, Nkrumah wrote about it. Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. Now, how do we deal with it? Nkrumah gave us the tools to deal with it. There's another book called Philosophical Consensusism. You see, it is called the philosophy of decolonization. We're looking for solutions. People are jumping around, going up and down. What should we do? Everything Nkrumah has written it down. what we need to do. So the leaders in the 1960s, 1963, the formation of Organization of African Unity, which was a compromise. The Organization of African Unity, which we are seeing, the African Union today, was a compromise. So we should not be surprised why the African Union is not functioning, because it was not formed for this purpose. The African Union was not formed for the purpose of governing the continent. That was not the purpose of the organization. The Organization of African Unity. We were supposed to get a union government in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia, in 1963, and we did not get it. So when we did not get the Union Government of Africa, then we got an organization which looks like the United Nations. You see, so that is why you see it behaves like an NGO, or what they call a non-government organization. That is why the African Union behaves in that way. That is why the people who are there, they behave in that way. That is why the leaders on the African continent, they don't respect it. In the same way like you are seeing that the United Nations is not respected, but the United States is not respected by France, or the whole of Europe. When they want to bomb anyone, they just go about and bomb anyone, go and bomb in Libya, go and bomb in Iraq, because the United Nations is not respected. So once the Organization of African Unity, which is the African Union today, accepted to take on the nature of an NGO, then it became a loose organization, whereby it cannot hold the leaders, the different leaders on the African continent, accountable for their actions. And so that is what we are struggling with today. So we missed that opportunity. The leaders missed that opportunity. They missed the opportunity of consolidating the independence. So that unity was supposed to help to strengthen all the African, countries. So many people, they always say that, when we get a union government, so all the other the other tribes will speak one language. That is not what it means. That is not what Nkrumah meant. All of a sudden, all the 2,000 tribes which we have on the continent will, lose their language, will lose their culture. This is not what it means. And this is not what Nkrumah meant. What Nkrumah meant was that when we unify the continent, we unify on the things that are common to us all. But we use this as a means of celebrating our diversity. And then it is in turn, this unity or Union of African States or Union government of Africa is a means of protecting actually our diversity, so that we can be able to practice our diversity and our cultures. This is what it means, having a union government. So the things which we will be looking at to have in common, there are things like all of us want good health. All of us want good roads. All of us want technology. These are the things, common policy. All of us, single passport. We want to move all over the continent, and we want to be respected all over the world, because when we come from our continent and go to Asia or Europe or the United States, we are not looked at as Kikuyu or, Akan, or Zulu or, Oromo. We are not looked at in that way. We are looked at as African. So this was Nkrumah's vision. Actually, this was a dream to Honorable Marcus Garvey. Nkrumah is the one who made it a vision. And now we must make it a reality. So our leaders missed that opportunity of consolidating the independence which was achieved. Now that independence would later be compromised in 1966 after the overthrow of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. That is what we are seeing today, that we are dealing with a compromised independence. The United States can go anywhere where it wants on the continent and do whatever it wants, can go to, to Somalia in 1990 and bomb in 1993 and start bombing and destroy the government there. Up to now, the government in Somalia has not recovered. It can go to Congo and take the resources how it wants. Nobody will touch it, because our independence was compromised. We failed. The leaders failed us in 1963. They failed to listen to what Nkrumah was telling them. They failed to consolidate that independence. the United States can go to Libya and bomb. The United States can go to Djibouti and put the biggest military base it has on the continent. The United States can go and interfere in Ethiopia and attempt to overthrow a democratically elected government. So these are all the effects of us failing to consolidate. The United States can go to Ghana and establish military bases. It has over 40 military bases across the African continent. What are they for that the United States has established these military bases? It's the same thing which Nkrumah said in the 1960s. He said that the reason for imperialism is economic. The reason why Europeans came here is economic, yet the solution is political. So I will explain that one later, why they came here economically, but the solution is political. What I mean by that, or what Nkrumah meant by that. But they are here to secure economic benefits, as we have seen in the past. When they came here, they exploited the labor in the 16th and 17th century. Then later, when we defeated them and slavery was stopped, then they changed and said, now we are going to colonize them if they have refused to be enslaved. They came back and colonized us. So again, they continue to take the resources. At first, they were taking humans and taking the material resources. So now, in colonialism, they started to take the material resources because we resisted the slavery, and humans were no more being taken. So they decided now to take the materials and then use our materials to manufacture products in Europe and the United States and bring them back and consume the market, use the market. So they were now capitalizing on our market and our materials that they're taking them. Now that is the trajectory that has continued on today, that there is this struggle to maintain grip over the African continent and other parts of the world. Their resources, we have seen the United States, why has it been going, why has the United States been going to Iraq and Afghanistan? Is oil. Why has it been disturbing Venezuela, disturbing Cuba, disturbing Iran? Is oil. These are the resources which we are talking about. These are the resources which we are talking about. So when the president of the United States, George W. Bush, came to power, the United States, I think it was in 2000, I think it was 2012, if I remember well, when the George Bush, it was was it 2010? I think it was 2010 or 2011, somewhere there. 2010 or 2011 when George Bush came to power, because I remember 9/11. Yeah, he came to 2000, 2001, right?
2000.
Yeah, he came 2000, right? Yeah, because 9/11 happened under George Bush. So when George Bush comes to power in 2000, after Obama's second term, George Bush commissioned a committee, and he said that they should look at the needs of the energy needs of the United States. So these energy needs, they will help them to determine the economy, the future of the United States economy. Now he commissioned, and the person who was leading that committee was called, who was the vice president of the United States at that time. What is his name? Dr. Hammond, do you remember him? The vice president under George Bush. This guy, Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
So he commissioned. Yes, Dick Cheney was the vice president. He was the one to lead that commission. Now, if you remember, Dick Cheney was also, was one of the leaders. I think he was the CEO at Halliburton, which we know that is an energy company. So in that report, what they said is that United States is facing energy needs, when we are talking about energy, we are talking about definitely oil, hydrocarbons. And so the Middle East has become very unstable. Okay, it has become unstable, that it is costly for them to take resources from the Middle East. Okay, so if it is costly for them to take resources from the Middle East, especially oil, they say that it is better for them to concentrate on the African continent, because on the African continent, there's less resistance compared to the Middle East. You can see that they have sacked them, they have chased them from Afghanistan. That is the resistance which we are talking about. And the other thing which they said is that the Africa is just across the Atlantic. You see, so they said that they should put their focus on Africa. And that year we are talking about 2001. So when they did this, they said that Africa is the one which is going to provide their bulk of energy needs. Is going to take care of their energy needs for the future. So when you see that 10 years later, President Muammar Gaddafi will be overthrown and killed brutally, when Libya is the biggest, one of the biggest producers of oil on the continent, this should not come as a surprise. When you see this functionality and the continuation of Boko Haram in Nigeria, this should not come as a surprise, because from the mouth of President George W. Bush himself, he said that United States fulfills its energy needs from the unstable parts of the world. You see, so they go out there to sow confusion, and then they take things while people are fighting. And that is what we are definitely seeing in Libya. That is what we are seeing in Somalia, that they have taken control over the ports in Somalia. That is what we are seeing in Nigeria. While they are struggling, fighting poverty, they are looking at social issues. These guys are taking away the oil from Nigeria. And remember, we know that Nigeria has the best oil. When we talk about oil, we are talking about low sulfur content oil. Nigeria has the best oil in the world. Nigeria's oil is very cheap, that it doesn't require a lot of money for you to refine it. So that is why you see that Nigeria is suffering. So the United States is in Nigeria, and Europe, they are exploiting this oil for the last 60 years since independence, and they are benefiting themselves. So what they are doing on the continent with these military bases. Well, recently we heard they are trying to establish, the headquarters of AFRICOM in Zambia. All this is for consolidation. The demonization of China, which we have seen in the past for the last 10 years, China, Africa is indebted to China. China is enslaving. All this is propaganda. The disturbance which we are seeing in Ethiopia is because Ethiopia discovered oil in huge quantities. Why is the world economy today in trouble? It's because of oil. It's because of the energy needs. Why has everything skyrocketed? Food prices have gone up. The energy need, the price of oil has gone up. It's because they are trying to consolidate. They are trying to consolidate that power. They are trying to consolidate their control over the African resources. So this is why you are seeing them in Somalia trying to consolidate the trade routes. Remember we spoke about the markets, because remember the imperialists, the number one reason or objective for being in the different countries is raw materials, like we say, the oil and other materials which are very abundant in Africa. 2 is market for the products. That is why you see that Africa for a very long time has been made a garden or a farm for Europe and the United States to exploit. Africa, they don't want it to modernize and start manufacturing products here, because they want to look at Africa as a market, manufacture vehicles from Europe and bring them to Africa and let Africans buy and let us get rich and take their raw materials and manufacture these vehicles. So this is the reason why the United States is disturbing all over this continent. This is the very reason why the United States is all over the continent, in the east, in the west, in the Congo, is in Mali, disturbing in Mali. France is there. United States and Europe, they are the same people. It's the same people. And like I said, that is why you see they have an organization called NATO. United States is a continuation of European civilization. Is a continuation of European civilization. So these are Europeans. You are talking about Australia, Canada. You are talking about, all of Europe and the United States. This is a continuation of European civilization. So let no one be mistaken that these people are different. These are not different. So that is why you have them in groups. They are attacking Russia. when they are attacking, all of them attack. You hear Germany, you hear Britain, you hear France, all of them they are attacking now. They're attacking Russia. So this attack is the same attack which you saw in Berlin during the Berlin Conference of 1884, that all of them came and attacked Africa. So what is the purpose of them being on the African continent and their continuation on the African continent? The purpose is the exploitation of African resources. The purpose is the exploitation of the African people. That is the purpose, precisely. But when we want to look at what we can do as African people, I think that is a chapter which Mahlet, you will make another day for, so we can read from that chapter what we have to do as African people. Because what we have to do is clear as African people. It is not in the leaders who are presidents today. That solution to stop imperialism is within us as African people, the young and the old, all those who are willing, who love the African, who love Africa and its people, not only on the continent, but all across the world. Now, what are we to do? That is a chapter which we will read next time here on Connect Africa. I want to thank you, Mahlet.
Thank you very much. Really, that was really nice. It's all in our hands. It's just to go back and read the books, what our Pan-African leaders wrote, said. This is something that we have to really listen and get familiarized on daily basis instead of scrolling up and down TikToks and all this distraction, other short YouTube videos or anything, Instagram. We really have to tune ourselves to read a page from those Pan-African books or listen to their message. Many things are now also being uploaded on YouTube or visually by any means. So thank you very much indeed. I promise to organize another session, what we have to do as an African, to prevent this neocolonialism, from going on and then passing that to our children, to allow that, to happen even in our generation. It's just insane. It has been 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I will just give 2 minutes of a wrap up, just to leave a last message to our viewers. Dr. Herman.
Yeah, I would just recommend that every young generation has to write its own history, because our forefathers have gone through what they have gone through in their own context, in their own time. The post-African independence, like Nkrumah, whether it is Kenyatta, whether it is Patrice Lumumba, you can name more. They have done also their part. So we have to do our part.
Exactly.
So what we are doing is an extension of what they have done before, no matter whether they succeed or not. It has its own challenge. We also have our own challenge, but we are in a very better position, and we are well armed. Even we have even this platform. We are lucky that we can reach not millions, billions of people in the world. And it's very interesting that the world has understood what this Western government means. They have used their own mainstream media, to create imbalance in terms of perceptions, what Africa is with, what Latin America is, what China is, what Russia is. But it's time, now that they have been exposed who they are. Yet it is our responsibility also to protect our own interests. So, I mean, Mao Zedong said it is not, revolution is not a tea party. So it's not a tea party. It needs its own commitments. And we have to just move on. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that was really a good one. Thank you, Dr. Hermon. We need to do our part, definitely. We need to choose what history we want to write. Yeah. Yes, Kwame.
Yeah, thank you very much,
And
Mahlet.
don't
Thank
forget about the petitions.
I beg your pardon.
The petition. You wanted to put a link here or
Okay. So the petitions, I'll put them. I'll send them to you. Probably, maybe you can put them in the comment section
yeah.
or in the description. Those petitions, which we are working on for putting the African leaders and the African Union under extreme pressure, because we have to start now. The work has to start now. There's no any other time. We cannot wait for another day. So these petitions are talking about the demand for a union government of African states in the same way our forefathers who were strong, who were really Pan-Africans and cared about this continent were, were working on, what they were working on and what they were demanding was a union government. So that is one of the things which we are talking about. The other petition is for a single passport for all Africans and a single currency for the African continent. We understand that in 2014, the African Union passport was launched, and during the launch in Kigali, they said the leaders that time who launched it in Nkosazana, President Kagame, they said the leaders of the African continent, they should go out in their various countries and start giving out these passports. But those passports, up to now, they have not been given. So they ignored, like I said, they ignore all the directives of the African Union. So the only way to achieve these things is for us to come out there and demand for them and demand, for them with a lot of seriousness, with a lot of intention, and that is what we are doing. So we are demanding in this petition for a single passport for all Africans, including those in the diaspora, and then a single currency. And then the third petition is the demand that the wars on the continent be put to a break. And this means the establishment of a single military for all Africa, a single military force. So that would come with the demand that the foreign military bases should be ejected on the continent, because these are the ones causing the chaos. This is what we believe. So the continent, we are saying that we need a unified continent, we need a single military and the stoppage of wars, and then we are saying we need a single passport and currency. These are the three petitions: union government, single passport and currency, and then a single military on the continent. These are three petitions. Once you sign these, which we are looking for around 1 million people, then this will give us momentum also who are trying to move on the front side. This is the least you can do as an African, just to sign this petition. We are looking for 1 million people. So the people who are on the front side, then on the front line, then they will also be encouraged to move forward. These petitions, I would like to remind all the people who are watching that the petitions have been endorsed by the PLO Lumumba Foundation, definitely, and the PLO Lumumba Foundation, PLO Lumumba himself has signed these petitions. Honorable Joshua Maponga also is in the process of endorsing these petitions. Dr. Susan, Pan-African Daily TV, has endorsed these petitions. Dr. Edmond Folfak, who is a renowned oncologist in Ohio State University Medical Center, he has also, endorsed these petitions. So it is left to us as Africans to go out there and do the work. The people who are going to stand in the gap and on the front line are already there, they are ready. So what they are asking for is for the African citizens and the African civil society also to get ready and put themselves in position like people who want the continent to be free and who want the African people to live a dignified life all over the continent, that they will not be killed anyhow, like what we are seeing in Spain, what we are seeing in the United States, where African people are being killed all over. So by African people, I stand in the same spirit which Nkrumah stood in when he said that all people of African descent, you know, whether they live in North America, whether they live in the Caribbean or any part of the world, are Africans and belong to the African nation. So when we are talking about signing these petitions, this is what we mean, that all people of African descent and all those on the continent and all those outside the continent, they should sign these petitions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank our speakers here, Dr. Herman and Brother Kwame, for your time. I would like, to announce that every week we will select a topic, and here also the viewers, you can suggest what is really going on in the continent. It should be every day at least we try to make what's making headline in the continent and try to give that headline what's going on in the continent, to give it a pan-African perspective. So it will be either Thursday or Friday we come here and we analyze it from the African point of view, and we will announce that on our community post soon. But thank you very much here, my brothers, and also the viewers who are here with us. Yeah, thank you. Have a good evening and a good weekend as well.
Okay, thanks, Mahlet, for inviting us. Have a good evening. Good night, Comrade Kwame. Good night.
Night.
Ciao. Salute.